was with Tremwel Tremwel Energy and Pico Solar. And he lives in a net zero house that he will tell us about, I believe. And so without further ado, Dr. Tremwel, tell us.
I'm keeping it here. I've got Parkinson's, so if I start getting a little shaky, I might sit down, and it's not out of disrespect. It's to keep things steady. So yeah, we've built a net zero home. This is the past 12,000 years of temperature in different ways of looking at it. And you can see right at the tail end there a bit of a spike. And so that little spike looks like this in the past 140 years or 135 years. The kinds of events, this Munich Re is a reinsurance company. When you buy insurance from somebody, usually it's backed by a bigger company. And so Munich Re does climate, insures climate events and major events. And you can see the red along the bottom is geophysical events, so like earthquakes and so on. Meteorologic, the other three are all influenced by climate change, and so you can see in terms of numbers of events that earthquakes are remaining stable, everything else is going up. So typical question is, was a particular event caused by climate change? Well, according to Kevin Trenberth, all weather events are affected by climate change because the environment in which they occur is warmer and moister than it used to be. So what are we doing? Well, if the whole world lived like we do, you'd need 4 Earths for the resources we're consuming. So we're about 4% of the world's population. We consume about 25% of the world's energy. China is doing a little better, but they're still consuming more than their share as well. So 3 countries, when this diagram was made, there's 3 countries that are below the level of consuming the resources on the earth, are consuming less than their share if you looked at it on a per capita basis. My wife hates this diagram, but I like it because it shows China has surpassed us in terms of greenhouse gases, but they've got 4 times our population. Here's us, and we consume more than all of Europe put together. Or we generate more greenhouse gas emissions than all of Europe put together. So that's what it says. So we got a choice. Our response has to be a mix between mitigation, adaptation, and misery. That's our choice. So who's going to decide? Who's going to be miserable? So if rich people and rising countries are creating the problem of climate change, who's most harmed by it? It's overwhelmingly poor people in developing countries. And this is a typical scene at a bus stop in Central America. So US greenhouse gas emissions by sector as of 2014. So you see here the various energy subsectors: agriculture, industrial processes, and waste, as far as causing greenhouse gas emissions. You see electric power and transportation are the biggest, and then industrial is next. Now, more recently, these two have flipped, but we'll see that next. Here we are in Arkansas. What event has happened recently that makes us the third worst in terms of increasing emissions.
Power plant.
Yeah, Turk plant.
The what?
The Turk power plant has been the biggie in the more recent years. So here's where we see nationwide electric power is decreasing in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, but transportation has crossed it. So transportation has actually become a bigger portion, so it's like 29, 28%. We're right around in that range. And this is the global situation. You can see that it splits out a little differently globally. But globally, carbon dioxide is 77% of the greenhouse gas emissions. Methane is 14%. Nitrous oxides are around 8%. Then you've got basically coolants, in your air conditioner system is about 1%, but growing. Although there's an effort to change the kinds of coolants that are being used. This is our current trajectory, up until 2030. The baseline, before there were efforts to try to control what was going on, is up here. So with our current policy trajectory, we've blunted it by that much. If we met the Paris Accords, we'd be somewhere in this range. But where we need to be is down here, to stay within a 2-degree Celsius range of the historic temperatures. And this just extends it out another 20 years. So that's up until 2030, and this is to 2050. So, I live in the SWEPCO territory for energy, for electricity, and this is our current resource mix as of 2016. So you can see right there, 89% is either coal or natural gas. Wind is about 8% of the mix in SWEPCO territory, and they take credit for 3% energy efficiency and demand response. This is their goal, was by 2034 to have 29% solar and wind, which is pretty disappointing, by 2034. But they're actually going to achieve that in about 2022 if this wind catcher, solar or wind farm goes through in Oklahoma. So they would get to about this point by 2022 or whenever that wind catcher plant.
How much would their capacity be at that point? Will it grow or stay the same or go down?
It's roughly staying the same. Nationwide, our consumption of electricity has been flat for about 14 years. Yes?
What is SWEPCO?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the electric utility in northwest Arkansas. Well, in the western part of the state,
Oh,
here.
okay.
Over, right over here.
Oh.
So that's roughly the SWEPCO territories. Now, one effect that's very local is when this apartment, this townhouse complex was built, it was not in the floodplain. Now it is. The flood maps have been redrawn, and it catches the corner of that building. So these are the kinds of things that change locally. Now I've got a ton of slides, so I can't stop. So we actually do have local effects. It's not just poor people that are being affected. We're being affected as well. And here's the drought index in Arizona and in Wyoming. In both cases, it's getting more severe. So even if the minimum projected increase were to take place in terms of temperature, it will be larger than any century-long trend in over 10,000 years. Already, climate change is estimated to cause over 150,000 deaths annually. So we have some local effects, but the more severe effects are where there's poverty and hunger. So can you just slap solar on it and expect a result? This is 99 solar panels on a home in Fayetteville, and it doesn't even cover half of their electricity use.
Wow.
2 people live there. It's a huge, inefficient home. So you got to start with efficiency. So that's what we tried to do. You start with ICF, insulated concrete forms. These are forms where you pour concrete down the middle, and it gives you both structure and good insulation value. So our lower walls are made like this. In the process, we were able to save shade trees. This is an old oak that has a 30-inch diameter at the base. So Fayetteville requires this kind of thing to protect the trees while you have construction going on. And it's possible it worked. The tree's still there. Spray foam insulation has 2 benefits. It both insulates and it seals. So part of what you want to do in terms of an engineering approach is you want to control 3 things. You want to control, you want to seal it, you want to insulate it, and you want to have good windows. So this picture illustrates all 3. Those windows are you know, high quality windows that prevent, you know, quite a bit of heat loss, you know, reduce heat loss in the wintertime and heat gain in the summertime. The other thing you want to do now, if you on a typical home, if you point a thermal camera at the wall, you'll be able to see the insulation areas, and then you'll be able to see the studs, because the studs act as thermal conductors right into the house. So you want to isolate the studs, and one way of doing that is using this zip-R insulation, which not only is a moisture barrier, but it has some insulation qualities. We designed the house deliberately with these clear stories facing south to give us more roof space facing south. Our builder uses an interim blower door test before they seal it up before they hang the sheetrock, in order to be able to seal things up if there's something that they've missed, if there is a leak. So they do this interim blower door test. Fayetteville, I think, is the only city in Arkansas that requires blower door tests before new homes are given a certificate of occupancy. So this builder uses 2, does their own blower door test, and then has a third-party company to certify. And this home, because it was sealed with foam, was the lowest leakage of any home that this company had ever tested. So that's part of it. You want to reduce leakage, and you want to increase insulation, and you want to have good windows. Those are the three key parts. We chose, you know, high quality, high SEER rating, air conditioner, heat pump system, tankless water heater, because every time you have a water heater, you're losing heat. Yes?
How does a tankless water heater work?
Just as the water passes through, it heats it up. Heats up the water. It's a 3-stage system. So it uses electricity and heats up the water as it passes through, and there's 3 stages in there. Here's the jobs that are generated. So on the roof of the house itself, we had 42 solar panels, and here you can see we have another 10 on the garage, and there's space for 18 for a company I'm involved in called Pica Solar, so we can compare directly with treated with Pica Solar's technology versus the previous technology. We're using solar edge inverters with optimizers, so we can isolate out each individual panel. And we do have a little bit of shading, not a lot, but some shading, and so the solar edge with optimizers gives you the most protection well, that or individual microinverters gives you the most protection in a shade condition. Because string inverters, if there's a solar panel along the way that's producing less or that has shade for whatever reason, or bird poop or whatever, it affects the whole string. So 2 ways of getting around that are solar edge type inverters with optimizers or microinverters. And so as a result, and this is another thing that Fayetteville is the only city in Arkansas that requires, is this HERS index. So the HERS index, in a HERS index, an existing home would rate about 130. A typical new home would rate about 100. So ours came in at negative 27 on that. So what that's saying is that we're generating more electricity than what the house is consuming. So what do you do with that excess energy? Well, I'll show you solar vehicle, or electric vehicles in a little bit. But as a result of all that effort, 0 bills in terms of, we still have to pay the customer charge, but 0 bills in terms of electricity consumption. And I just went out yesterday, and that's carried through for a whole year since we've lived there. We've generated about 20 megawatt hours in a single year. And so that shows, we moved in the 1st of February, or 1st of March, I'm sorry, of last year. So that was our actual generation with the system. And you can break it down to individual solar panel production. So you can see that there's a little bit of shading over here and over here, but good production throughout. Yeah, Frank?
Do you have a smartphone app for that?
Yes, yes. Well, that's what this is off of. This is a screenshot from a smartphone.
I came in late. What side of Mount Sequoia are you on?
Right next to the cross.
Okay, so you're facing west?
Facing west. Right. And so for those of us who who don't think in terms of kilowatt hours, this is part of the app. They show you CO2 emissions saved and equivalent trees planted. That's just part of the app that the inverter company puts out. So we've included 6 charging stations on our property. One of them is shown right there. There's 2 in the garage, 2 on the outside of the garage, and then 1 on the corner of the house and 1 out here near the curb, so that if you bring your electric vehicle, you can charge at 240. You have to bring your own little charging system, but most people who buy electric cars do that. And so here's the reward. This is a Volt, so it does have a gasoline engine, but the first 35 or 40 miles are on electricity. And so as a result, this was my car, 160 miles per gallon, and that's still holding up. My wife's got 100,000 miles on hers, and she's up to 150 miles per gallon. She takes a few longer trips than I do. So for 100,000 miles, what other vehicle can you have that gets 150 miles per gallon? If it were pure electric, you could do a little better than that. But here in Arkansas, it's hard to find places to charge. So the Union of Concerned Scientists did this kind of study over time. So in 2009, when they first did this study, they showed that there were certain places that where it might be better to have a gas car than an electric car if you had a really highly efficient gas car. And this is the SWEPCO area. So Entergy has nuclear power, so that's why it's got a little cleaner grid power relative to greenhouse gas emissions, at least. Here's what it looked like in 2016. So by 2016, even in the SWEPCO territory, greenhouse gas emissions were less. And so even a Prius, my understanding is real use of a Prius is probably less than 49 miles to the gallon in real life. And so this is the most efficient EVs are even better off. So that this map is using the an average EV. This is using the most efficient EVs. Electric vehicles, yeah, I'm sorry. So in this map, in the 2016 case, it doesn't matter where you're plugging in. You're better off using an electric vehicle than any gas car that's practical. The grid is getting cleaner. We see the renewables increasing and coal use is decreasing. Now, in the past, the International Energy Agency used to predict, well, they still do, they predict what the future uptake of solar is going to be. And so this shows every year they predict it's going to be flat, and every year the demand increases.
Yeah.
Dramatically. And in reality, this was an estimate. In reality, that we were up around 100 gigawatts added globally. So this is even pessimistic to what actually happened in 2017. So worldwide, solar is becoming more and more popular, more and more a part of our lives globally. And this is what's happened since 2010 in the price of battery systems. Batteries are the big part of what goes in an electric vehicle, or one of the big costs. But it's come down 75% just since 2010 to 2016, and that trend has continued and is expected to continue. So what do you do if you're an institution and you want to get a LEED certified building? One of the things you do is you put electric vehicle charge points out in your parking lot. So this is the Engineering Research Center where Pika Solar's offices are, right there. And so I've been able to plug in there to charge. We used to live in Van Buren, and I was able to go back and forth from Van Buren to Fayetteville and use almost no gas because I had places to plug in, like at the office. Pika, that's our logo for Pika Solar. That's some of the guys working in the lab, in their bunny suits. And so Pika Solar has developed a proprietary manufacturing process that will both improve solar cell efficiency and lower costs at the same time. And so that's one of the cells that we can treat. My favorite bumper sticker, renewable energy is homeland security. And my favorite, what if we're wrong? What if it's a hoax and we just make things better? Make the air cleaner. All right, with that, open for questions. I've got some videos. Yes.
As built, your home as built, what's the cost per square foot?
If you've ever built a home, you know, built a home as an individual, that's hard to keep track of. We didn't keep track of it that tight. We built a very expensive home. It's got a view of Fayetteville from up on Mount Sequoia. The most efficient thing you can do is add insulation, improve your windows, and just pay attention to the ceiling. You know, to make sure you've got all your windows sealed and all your doors sealed. We retrofit a house in Van Buren, and that was a process as well. Part of what we did there, we had a home energy audit done, and the home energy audit found that every door jamb was connecting to below the subfloor, so we were losing heat down the door jambs. So what I was told is spray some spray foam in every door jamb. So there are practical things you can do that are low cost.
I built my own house 25 years ago, 6-inch walls. I've done everything that was economically possible for me to do.
Right.
And my highest monthly bill with energy, whether it be gas or electric or whatever, has been about $160. But of course, I don't have solar.
Right.
So I'm just trying to, and I built that house at that time. You got to remember, I was 25 years ago, and doing it myself, I had better than $90 a square foot in.
Yeah. It can be very expensive, but you know, Stitt calls it homes for life. So you know, we designed the home so that a wheelchair could fit down it. So you know, when my Parkinson's gets worse, I'll still be able to live there. We did things like that allow it to be a lifetime home, basically. Yes.
Sometimes you hear that if you retrofit insulation, that there's humidity buildup and risk of mold buildup in your home. What's your observation on that?
Well, yeah, we have metering fans in our bathroom. You know, so there's a code for how much air exchange is required. So if you seal up the house real good, and you put in the the recommended air exchange, then you know. The other thing is where mold tends to build up is in ductwork. So we have ductwork minimized in the house. We only have ductwork between the first and second. It's a 3-story house. So between the first and second floor, all the ductwork is. There's no ductwork that goes from one floor to another. And then in the top floor, we've got split systems, which are ductless. So you know, where you don't have a duct, you're not going to have any problem with you know, like what you're describing. Yes.
So how much are panels per? How much? What's the price per panel, roughly?
You know, it varies greatly. Because I'm in the industry, I'm able to get them wholesale. But you know, even retail, they're under $1 a watt, which is just amazing. You know, for those of us who've been in the industry for a while. I was able to get some that I then sold on a year ago. So I was able to wholesale them and sell them to a company cheaper than what they could get from their supplier. And so that got down to about 31 cents a watt. But the price has come back up to about 50 cents a watt wholesale at this point.
Can you put that in a dollar amount? I'm sorry.
Okay, typical solar panels these days, let's just call it 300 watts. So 50 cents a watt would be $150 per solar panel. But then you have to install it. You know, there's other costs. The way that the cost structure goes in the industry these days, just a rule of thumb, it's about 20% for the solar panels, about 20% for hardware, about 20% for the labor, about 20% for paperwork, and about 20% for profit. That's just broad rule of thumb. Yes?
What about battery storage?
Batteries, we don't have battery storage right now, but you know, I'm thinking, yeah, I've allowed some space in the house, a place to put battery storage.
How does the price of that compare to the panels?
I think, you know, it depends what you want to do with the battery storage. Typical guidelines are like maybe 4 hours of storage to get you through the night, 4 hours of peak generation, you know, equivalent storage can get you through the night until the next day, and that would cut way down on your exchanges with the utility. So I think 4 hours in our case would be on the order of you know, 2 of those power walls that Tesla has, so somewhere in the range of 16 kilowatt hours or so. Does it sound about right to you, Frank?
Yeah, and the Tesla Powerwall is going to be twice as expensive as the lead acid battery. You put the lead acid battery on the floor, you hang the Powerwall on the wall. My perspective is, let's put the lithium-ion batteries on wheels and drive them around. And then when we come home, we can park them in the garage and have a bi-directional plug. Not only can we drive our batteries, but they can power our house. And then you can have lead acid to back that up too.
Yeah, those efforts are ongoing and making some progress, but don't exist anywhere yet. There's nowhere yet that allows you to feed your power back
Unless you're
on
in
a routine
Japan.
basis.
Japan allows it.
Yeah.
All the electric cars in Japan have bi-directional plugs. None of the cars in the U.S. have bi-directional plugs. Think who is keeping that under wraps.
Any other questions?
How about on cloudy days and rainy days?
Yeah, I mean, that's what net metering's for, is to allow you, you know, one thing about a cloudy day in the summertime means you consume less energy. So that's a good part of it. But yeah, I mean, that's why you have net metering agreements, is to get you through the cloudy days. So that you can, your grid time. Yes.
A few questions. What's the present day kind of state-of-the-art efficiency for solar cells? And how long before that's obsolete? And also, why did the cost of solar per watt go up recently?
Well, just, it's a burp. You know, it's a blip. You know, if you looked at the long, well, Frank showed the long term. It's very consistently down. You know, it's a commodity, so there are going to be bumps. And part of what happened is the threat of the import tariff.
Okay.
You know, there's all kinds of things that affect commodities. So I saw some other hands.
I had 2 other questions.
Okay.
Did you hear them? I asked what's the current efficiency for solar cells, and
It's,
how long?
20% is pretty common,
Okay.
but it's going up all the time.
How long do you think before the 20% is obsolete?
You know, you gotta take today, you look at today, does it make sense today? And that's what my talk this afternoon is gonna be about for a church today, installing a solar system, and then what kind of return on investment you can get today. You know, I'm not very good at predicting the future, what did Yogi Berra say about it? You know, but anyway, you gotta deal with today. And today is a good day to build a solar system. I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now.
Well, I mean, you showed a trend about what was going on with.
It's going to get more efficient, yes, and it's going to get cheaper. But you know, to give you a fixed number, I don't know.
But you can understand the concern for somebody wanting to get into it. Well, I'm going to buy something
Well, my
now,
point is,
and then
it makes sense today.
later.
It makes sense today.
But then if I have to, what I have is obsolete in a few years.
No.
What you have, if you're using a natural gas water heater, it's obsolete.
In 20 years.
Now, it's obsolete right now. So, yeah.
I'm not sure most of your audience understands that when SWEPCO wanted to build the Turk plant, first they showed shares of it, like 15%, to the co-ops to get their backing. They wanted to build it to sell electricity to Texas because Texas says no more coal-fired plant. They canceled them all. So SWEPCO chose to build it in Arkansas. We let them roll over us.
So we're sucking on their tailpipe. Exactly.
Yeah, the air, the pollution goes downwind, the electricity goes to Texas. They got the co-ops to buy in so they'd support it.
So Arkansas sucks on Texas's tailpipe is what the long and short of that one is. Yes.
How much direct sunlight do you need if you have solar panels on your house? You're interested in, there's a lot of shade and stuff. What, do you just need direct sun that comes on there most of the day, every day?
Here's the best answer I have for you. So that one says 303. That's the worst performing one. The best performing one, let's see, that's pretty close to the best performing one. So that's the range of performance that we have in the system.
Well, do they measure something if you wanted just to see if you could have one? Is there some measurement that they say no, that would be worth your money to put it on your house, you know?
Sunny days per year.
I mean, I just have a big shady area all over, all in my
Yeah,
neighborhood.
you don't want to put a solar system where it's going to be shaded a lot of the day.
Okay. That's what I thought.
You want to do what Frank's done. You know, Frank has found an answer to that.
The solar farm. Well, when we look at houses that might have shade, we can add 5, 10, 15, 20% shade factor to the projected output. It'll lower the kilowatt hour generation. And so bottom line is shade, whether it be summer full leaf shade or winter long casting shadows from your neighbor's tree across the street, is not a good combination. So shade and solar don't go together. If you have shade, go to the solar farm. Go to some other alternative like that.
What did you mean when you said solar farm?
Okay, you weren't in my presentation this morning.
No.
There's policy called meter aggregation that allows anybody, the current solar farm is for Entergy customers only.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me.
All right. So wherever who's your provider? North Little Rock Electric or
I'm in Benton.
Benton Utilities?
Yeah.
All the electric utilities in Arkansas, all the municipal electric utilities in Arkansas do not have to allow their customers to meter aggregate. So you don't have a lot of choices, unfortunately, if you got shade on your roof. Not now, at least. We're trying to talk to Benton and Conway and say, hey, it may cut into your revenues, but let's get progressive here and you guys allow your customers to site their solar array somewhere within the service territory of Benton Electric and put a meter in your name. You connect your solar panel up to that meter, it measures energy production, You still have your meter at your house. It measures energy consumption, and at the end of each month, those meters cancel each other out. Three neighbors down from where you're sitting is one of the early adopters of a solar array in the Bearskin Solar Center. Barry Haas, how's that working out for you, Barry?
Well, we not only have produced 100% of what we use at our house for the last 2 years, but I have about 6,000 kilowatt hours built up at Entergy, so that when I get a plug-in or electric car, I'm going to have free gas.
For a couple
So
of
it's
years.
working out splendidly.
Okay, let me play you a little video clip. About electric vehicles.
It's full of hundreds, if not thousands of parts. It's
Right here.
extremely complex. It has oil, coolant, an exhaust system that can rust out. It has endless amounts of emissions equipment.
Wi-Fi must be getting used.
This is essentially the whole thing. What you have here is 2 electric motors. You got a differential that changes the power out to the axles that drive the wheels. You have a battery pack that supplies power to the motor. That's it. Wow.
It's supposed to be a 2-minute clip, but obviously it's a little longer.
What does it take to recycle the batteries out of the electric car?
They've got plans for that. So it's cheaper than your car. Operating cost is cheaper than a gas car. Yes.
Did you put a heat recovery ventilator in your house?
No, we put this, it ended up not being worth it because the house is so well sealed. So we've got these whisper quiet Panasonic fans and just keep the amount of air exchange to a minimum, to just what's required.
When you get an electric car, do they tell you, or can you get all the places where there's plug-ins?
Yeah, I've got an app. So when I come to Little Rock, I know that I can charge at the hospital, at UAMS. There's other places in town. If you choose a Tesla, there's the Tesla charging station here in Little Rock.
I probably won't be getting that one.
Right. The Model 3 is kind of right around average cost for a new car. So
What's the cost of using that charging station?
0.
How long does it take to charge a car?
At the Tesla superchargers, my understanding is in 20 minutes you can get 80% of say 300-mile range. So 240 miles in 20 minutes, 20 or 30 minutes. Yes.
How long before the highway department goes to the legislature and says, we've got to have money for electric cars to maintain the highways?
how long before your
Probably next week,
representative
right?
tells you, decides that they wanna charge people for what's happening to your health
Yeah.
because of
They'll never do
emissions?
that.
Oh, they're not interested in our health?
No, they're not interested. Yes,
They're not interested in climate change. Terry,
yes.
What's going on, do you know, with like commercial transportation, say like trucking and?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of companies, including Tesla, that's trying to tackle that. How that will work, I don't know. For the short haul kinds of things like drayage, going from the port to a terminal, where freight gets redivided up into different trailers, it would probably make a lot of sense in a drayage situation. J.B. Hunt is involved in that. Walmart is involved in that. There's a lot of companies that are on the list to get a semi-tractor trailer when they're available. Yes.
What app on your phone? Charge Hub?
ChargePoint.
Charge
There's
Point?
There's several apps.
'Cause I got Charge
Point is
Hub, yeah.
one. What's,
Charge Point,
yeah, ChargePoint is the one that I,
okay.
let's see what, yeah, there's ChargePoint. Recargo is another one. But there's multiple apps that on your phone that can tell you
Okay.
a place to charge nearby. So, and what kind of system it is and all that. Other questions? So, yes.
I have a follow-up on the solar panels for your home about the Google, you can enter in your address and see, is that a good estimate? Like, do you all know how accurate the Google estimate is that?
Well, what I always use is PV Watts, which is on the National Renewable Energy Lab's website. It's a federal lab within the Department of Energy. So I've typically had pretty good luck with PV Watts. People use like what's that software? Heliovolt or something like that?
I don't know, I use PV Watts.
Yeah.
I've integrated it into my system to quote.
Yeah, PV Watts is simpler, but it seems to come up with answers that match the more sophisticated systems pretty well.
Is there a lot of ongoing costs to solar panels or a lifespan in terms of how long?
25 years.
Okay, then they have
The
to be
warranty
replaced.
for my church, the presentation that I'm going to do at 2:30 or whatever, is about our church. And so we're getting microinverters and the solar panels, both of which have 25-year warranties.
But
Very little maintenance,
Yeah.
if any.
There's
because of
nothing.
25-year warranty, it could go for 50 years then.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly,
And they have.
yeah.
Yes.
So at the end of that 25-year cycle, I mean, you still got something there,
Right.
producing less power and everything.
Right.
What is it can you recycle it? What is it that you?
Yes, basically they're recyclable, and all of the solar companies have recycling plants. So yes.
Or if you just said, there's something here installed that produces half the power when I put it in, but it costs me nothing to keep going.
Right. Well, over 25 years, they're predicted to still produce more than 80% of what they did originally. That's the performance warranty. More than 80%. Some are like 83 or 84% after 25 years, with a linear decline over that time. Yes.
Hail resistant. Sorry.
They're very hail resistant.
That's what I was gonna ask,
Okay,
actually.
hail, okay, the issue with hail, your roof is much more vulnerable to hail than a solar panel is. My friend Flint Richter has been doing this for 18 years, and his mentor did it for 12 years before that. They've never replaced a single panel because of hail.
Right.
So, and that's like 10,000 panels. Yes.
What's my house insurance company gonna say?
They're gonna love you because you're gonna protect that part of the roof. You know, my homeowner's insurance hasn't gone up. You're protecting every part of the roof that's covered.
Good job. I think we got the next.
Yes.
If you have a net metering agreement and for like a certain number of panels, and can you add panels after that and under the same agreement?
No, my understanding is that they tear up the old contract and write a new one that applies from the point that you've changed your system.
Entergy does that for you. They just cancel everything if you add panels. Now, you could do it stealthily, but if using power optimizers and modules, you would want to install an inverter that would be able to handle an extra 5 or 10 if you wanted to add it to a year for 5 years or whatever. You could probably, if you put the bigger inverter in, because you have to follow all that information, you left some roof space the way Terry has, I would submit that you could be able to install those without anybody even knowing you added them. Because he has the inverter, but did you install a little larger to handle an extra?
No.
Oh, okay. That's what we suggest.
They could.
Right.
But the
Yeah.
concern would be if you're in now under net metering and they change the rules, then,
No, you get grandfathered. That's a different question.
oh, that's,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so.
So one question is, if I add to my system,
Yep,
they're going to tear up your contract and start over.
but are you still under net metering then? Even if they change the rules? Let's say the Public Service Commission.
You'd have a new net metering contract signed at that point.
Okay, but it's still 100% net metering or no?
Who knows?
Well, it's whatever the rules are at that
At
point
that
in time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not a good idea to think, most people that talk about that, they just go ahead and install whatever they can fit anyway. You just eliminate that concern.
Right.
Yeah, it's
But-
unless it's a cost question.
Cost question?
A cost.
Oh, that's always a question.
that's always-
So if you can make your energy for half of what you're buying it for, what's keeping you from doing it? The upfront cost,
Right.
right? As simple as that.
If you got an old roof, should you put on a
Replace
new
it.
roof before you
Yes,
sell it?
First.
exactly what we did. At my church, we had hail damage, and so the insurance company paid for the new roof, and we're going to put a solar system on it while it's still new.
Does it affect re-roofing costs 10 years out?
You won't have to it protects the roof, it shades the roof.
The shingles under the solar panels will last forever. It's the ones that are in the sunshine that
Okay,
won't.
so it'll be a partial re-roofing when you need to do re-roofing.
Well,
Yeah.
when we've done that, we've had roofing contractors come and say, please take all these solar panels off, stack them on one side of the roof instead of down on the ground, let us replace it, you put them back where you found them. And, you know, it's maybe $1,000 or $2 to do something like that with 40 panels or so.
Right, thanks.
Is there any weight consideration based on the number of panels you have?
I think I heard it's like 4 or 5 pounds per square foot. You know, so every time you walk up there, it's whatever your weight is on, roughly a square foot is maybe how big your feet are. So, yes, there is a weight consideration, but it's usually within tolerances, easily.
Are there any builders who specialize in building the solar homes?
Yeah, it does up in northwest Arkansas. Frank probably knows the people in central Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, what my perspective on that is, if you're going to build a structure on this planet and you don't consider the sun's influence on it, like this window right here, these windows here, this is adding 2 tons of cooling load to this building because these windows are on the west side of the building and there's no awning shading them from the summer sun. So at 3 o'clock on August the 3rd, if you were to stand right here, you'd be hot. So it doesn't matter how much air they dump in here, because of these windows in the wrong spot, you just increase the cooling load of the structure. That happens 99.999% of the time with every building on this planet.
So
it's that
passive
very
solar.
fraction of buildings that are designed with the sun in mind. You have all the natural daylight you could possibly need.
But we don't know where the sun's going to be.
It could
Oh,
be,
yeah.
yeah, the poles could reverse.
Yeah,
And the magnetic, and the equator could shift.
yeah, it blows my mind that we haven't figured this out, but passive solar is the way to go.
Yeah,
You know, when you build a home, build it with the sun in mind, because it just might be up tomorrow.
But you must have some rooms that have to have west walls. Are they dark?
Then
no,
you
you
see-
want at least one window in every room. But if you're gonna look at what they had done to solve the problem, and the battle is over by the time the sun strikes the glass. These shades or something equivalent should be out there, not in here. So if you have a window in the wrong spot, there's houses, some good examples, but there's lots and lots of bad examples. You remember when houses had awnings over their windows? Remember those old three-sided metal louver things? Well, there's all kinds of designs today, and that's how you solve it. You block the sun from striking the glass. That's number one.
But they make windows that are energy efficient, that reflect light as well.
But that's still not as good as being passive solar. It's still not as good as what Frank's saying, you know, put an awning on the outside or some kind of, like visors is what State uses, use 2-foot visors.
Yeah, building integrated awnings is what you're looking, even on the south side. You want to maximize the windows on the south, but you still have to shade them, and you want to minimize them on the east and west. One of the solutions is, in Arkansas, put your porch on the northeast corner of your house and have a serious overhang, so now it's a dry porch, right? You can be in it when it's raining. On the west, same thing, run that extension out or put in awnings. Or just don't put don't run a whole bunch of windows where you don't really need them.
So our view is, our home is actually to the west, so we have lots of west-facing windows, but we also, that's where we have our
trees.
No, we've got our porches.
Right.
On the
Oh yeah,
west.
your decks, your building
The decks.
integrated overhangs.
Right.